The night had given way to a restless dawn. Lagos stirred awake with the cries of hawkers, the rattling of carts, and the clinking of pots. But inside Ijioma's small home, the weight of silence pressed heavier than the noise outside. Chike sat on the wooden bench, staring at the chest he had risked everything to protect. His hands rested firmly on its lid, as if letting go for even a second would mean losing it forever. Obi leaned against the wall, his face bruised from their last confrontation, but his spirit unbroken. He fidgeted, restless, kicking lightly at the floor. "You've barely slept," he muttered, watching Chike. "Your eyes are red, like you've been fighting shadows all night." "I don't need sleep," Chike replied, his voice hoarse. "I need answers." The notebook lay open beside him, Ngozi's delicate handwriting stretching across its pages, lines that felt more like riddles than instructions. For days he had studied it, but the meaning of many passages still escaped him. Each line spoke of protection, of alliances, of a promise that reached far beyond their small home. Ijeoma entered quietly, her wrapper tied tightly around her waist. She carried a tray of pap and akara, setting it down gently before her son. She looked at the chest, then at Chike, her face drawn with worry. "This thing has brought nothing but danger," she said softly. "I wish Mama Ngozi had never given it to you. You're just a boy, Chike. My boy. You should be playing, laughing, not carrying this burden." Chike looked up at her, his voice calm but firm. "Mama, I didn't ask for it. But she trusted me. If I abandon it, everything she sacrificed will mean nothing." Tears welled in Ijioma's eyes. She reached out, cupping his face in her hands. "And what if it costs you your life? What if they come for you, for Ada, for all of us?" The sound of Ada's laughter broke the tension. She burst into the room, clutching a small wooden doll, her braids bouncing as she skipped. "Chike, come and play with me," she pleaded. "Forget your chest for once." Chike forced a small smile. He loved her innocence, her joy in a world that had already demanded too much from him. But before he could respond, a knock at the door startled them all. Obi stiffened instantly. "That's not a friendly knock." Ijeoma moved quickly, signaling Ada to hide in the back. She cracked the door open cautiously. Standing there was Amora, her eyes sharp and urgent. She slipped inside without waiting to be invited, her gaze darting toward the chest. "They're moving," she said quickly. "Chief Ease may have retreated, but he's gathering again. And this time, he's not coming alone." Chike's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Amora's lips pressed into a thin line. "He's calling in his nephew. Ukena. The boy has no mercy, no patience. He's quicker than Ease, and more ruthless. If he gets involved, everything changes." Obi cursed under his breath. "Another one?" As if the old man wasn't enough, Amora ignored him, her eyes locking with Chike's. "You don't have time. You need to finish decoding the notebook. The longer you hesitate, the more ground they gain." Chike felt the weight pressing harder on his chest. He had known this fight wasn't over, but the thought of someone even more dangerous than Chief Ease chilled him. Later that day, Chike and Obi followed Amora to the edge of the lagoon, where the old warehouses sat like broken teeth against the water. The place was quiet, abandoned, but it carried the echo of past secrets. Inside, the air was thick with dust, shafts of sunlight cutting through holes in the roof. Amora led them to a wooden table covered with scraps of cloth and scattered notes. She spread the notebook out before them, tracing her finger over one of Ngozi's passages. "Look here," she said. "This part mentions guardianship, but not just of land or wealth. It speaks of people, families, workers, neighbors who once trusted Ngozi. They were scattered after betrayal. But some still live, waiting for a signal." Chike leaned closer, reading the faded ink. He felt a chill as realization struck him. "It's not just property," he whispered. "It's a network. A community. People who believed in her." Obi frowned. "And if Chief Ease gets control of that, he doesn't just take land. He takes power. Amora nodded grimly. Exactly. That's why you can't fail. Chike stared at the notebook, the weight of the truth pressing into his soul. He wasn't just protecting paper and maps. He was guarding the future of countless lives. That night, as the city outside dimmed, Chike sat by the flickering flame of a lantern, tracing every word of the notebook. Obi slept nearby, his snoring soft and uneven. Amora sat against the wall, her eyes half-closed but still alert. Chike's thoughts drifted to Ngozi. He remembered her frail hand squeezing his, her voice whispering promises of courage and kindness. He remembered her eyes, filled with secrets she could never fully share. And he remembered her last breath, the weight she had placed on his shoulders. His hand trembled as he turned the page, revealing a final, cryptic message written in the margin. It was faint, nearly invisible, but under the lantern's glow, he could just make it out. When the lion's cub grows teeth, the enemies will fear its roar. Chike's breath caught. It was as if Ngozi was speaking directly to him across time, reminding him that he was no longer just a boy. He was becoming something stronger, something his enemies would learn to fear. He closed the notebook slowly, determination hardening in his chest. Chief E's nephew might be coming. Danger might be closing in from every side. But Chike knew one thing with certainty: he was ready. By dawn, word had spread quietly through the neighborhood. Chief E's men had been sighted near the markets again, asking questions, flashing money, spreading fear. Ijeoma clutched Ada close, her eyes full of worry. They're coming closer, Chike. You have to be careful. Please, promise me you won't take risks. Chike looked at his mother, then at his sister, then back at the chest. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with a new fire. I can't promise that, Mama. But I can promise this: I will protect you. I will protect all of us. No matter what it takes. And though he was just 13, his words carried the weight of a man far older, a boy molded by trials, a guardian born from legacy and love. The season had begun, and with it, a storm that would test everything he had ever known. The city of Lagos stretched under the heat of midday sun, but within the small, dimly lit house where Chike, Obi, Amora, and Emeka had taken temporary refuge, tension was thicker than the stifling air outside. Chike sat cross-legged on the floor, the leather pouch and chest nearby. His eyes were fixed on the notebook, tracing lines and symbols, trying to decode the network Ngozi had left behind. Every word she had written now felt like a puzzle demanding answers, a test he could not afford to fail. Obi leaned against the wall, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. I still can't believe Emeka came back, he muttered, his voice low. After all that happened, you're trusting him? Chike didn't respond immediately. He knew Obi's fear was justified. Emeka had appeared suddenly in Season 2, claiming he wanted to help, but there had always been a shadow of doubt. Chike's instincts told him to be cautious, but Ngozi had taught him that sometimes help came from the least expected places. Emeka, sitting on a small stool near the window, watched silently, his fingers drumming lightly on his knees. His gaze was calm, controlled, almost too calm, but there was something in his eyes that Chike couldn't ignore, a flicker of ambition, a subtle hunger that hinted he might not be entirely loyal. Amora broke the silence, her voice steady but sharp. We need to focus. Chief Ease has regrouped, and now his nephew Ukena is moving. If we don't decode the next stage of the legacy, we will be cornered. Chike nodded, trying to ignore the knot in his stomach. He opened the notebook to a new set of symbols Ngozi had drawn, faint lines connecting locations, landmarks, and even people in the city who had once been her allies. There was a rhythm to it, a secret pattern he was only beginning to understand. The afternoon stretched on, and Chike worked tirelessly, tracing the hidden paths Ngozi had left behind. Obi brought him water, Emeka sat silently, and Amora occasionally leaned in to guide him. But as the shadows lengthened, Chike began to notice small inconsistencies. Emeka's eyes lingered on the chest more than necessary, his fingers brushing the edges of the leather pouch when no one was looking. His questions were too pointed, too curious about information he shouldn't have needed. Finally, Chike's heart skipped a beat as he realized the truth. Emeka had been feeding information to Chief Ease all along. Every move they had made, every hidden path they had taken, had been watched. The enemy had known far more than they should have. Chike, Obi whispered, voice trembling. He's been lying. He's been telling them where we go, what we do. Chike's eyes snapped to Emeka. Is that true? He demanded, his voice hard, cutting through the heavy air. Emeka didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back slightly, a shadow of a smirk on his lips. It's not that simple, he said calmly. I came back to protect what's left. But you have to understand, Chief Ease has power that none of us can fight alone. I'm trying to survive too. Chike felt a surge of anger, his chest tightening. Survive? You've been risking all our lives. My mother, Ada, Obi, even Amora. You've been helping the enemy. Emeka's eyes softened for a moment, almost convincing. I had no choice. But now, with your skills, your determination, we can turn it around. Trust me. Chike shook his head, frustration and betrayal burning inside him. He wanted to believe him, wanted to have an ally in this fight, but Ngozi's voice echoed in his mind. Trust only those who prove themselves. Night fell over the city, and with it came a palpable sense of danger. Chike decided to act, testing Emeka's loyalty. He packed the leather pouch with only a decoy set of documents from the chest and prepared to move under the cover of darkness toward one of Ngozi's hidden safe houses. Obi followed, alert and ready, while Amora kept watch. Emeka, however, insisted on accompanying them. I know shortcuts, he said, his tone too eager. I can guide you past patrols. Chike's gaze narrowed. No shortcuts, he said firmly. We do it my way tonight. And any deviation. Understood, Emeka interrupted smoothly. But Chike could feel the lie in his tone. They moved through the shadows, slipping past crumbling walls, abandoned alleys, and rooftops that overlooked the narrow streets. Chike led the way, following Ngozi's instructions exactly, every symbol and landmark etched into his mind. As they neared the safe house, a sudden shout echoed through the alley. Chike froze. Emeka's hand had disappeared from view for a moment, and when it returned, Chike noticed he held a small device, one that could send their location directly to Chief Ease. The betrayal was confirmed. Chike's heart pounded, adrenaline surging. Obi, move, he shouted. Obi reacted instantly, grabbing Chike's arm and pulling him behind an overturned cart as Chief Ease's men poured into the alley. The moonlight glinted off knives and metal, and the air filled with the sounds of shouts, grunts, and the chaos of pursuit. Emeka stepped forward, hesitating for only a fraction of a second, just long enough for Chike to see the conflict in his eyes. And in that moment, Chike realized, Emeka's loyalty was not entirely gone. The boy or man, depending on how long ambition had twisted him, was torn between survival and conscience. Chike acted without thinking. He grabbed the nearest rusted pipe, swinging it with precision to block one attacker while Obi flung a pile of debris toward another. Amora used the chaos to cover their escape, signaling them toward a narrow service tunnel she had discovered. Inside the tunnel, Chike stopped to catch his breath, chest heaving. Emeka, why? He demanded. Emeka leaned against the wall, sweat and dirt on his face. Because I didn't see another way. Chief Ease has eyes everywhere. I thought I could guide him instead of fighting him blindly. I wanted to survive this, survive us. Chike's hands trembled as he clutched the leather pouch. You endangered all of us. My family. Ada. Everything we're trying to protect. How do I know you won't betray us again? Emeka's head dropped slightly. I don't expect you to trust me. But I won't lie, I can help. I know how Ukena operates, where he's likely to strike. If you want a chance, you'll need me. Chike stared at him, the weight of decision pressing down. Ngozi's legacy was more than just land and documents, it was courage, trust, and the survival of everyone who believed in it. Emeka's betrayal was a fracture, a crack in that trust, but it also could be a tool if used wisely. Finally, Chike nodded, slowly. Fine. But one wrong move, Emeka, and you're on your own. Emeka nodded, a flicker of relief passing over his face. Understood. As dawn broke, Chike, Obi, Emeka, and Amora emerged from the tunnels into the quiet streets of Lagos. The city seemed unaware of the night's chaos, the sun casting long shadows across rooftops and alleyways. Chike knew the danger was far from over. Chief Ease and Ukenna were still out there, plotting, hunting, waiting for another mistake. But for the first time since Emeka's return, Chike felt a fragile sense of control. They had survived the night. They had learned the cost of betrayal, and they had adapted. Ngozi's legacy was not just about what was hidden, it was about who could protect it, who could endure the tests of trust, courage, and sacrifice. And Chike realized that as long as he drew breath, as long as his family had hope, he would not fail. The city had settled into a quiet lull, but the air still carried the heavy scent of tension. Chike, Obi, Emeka, and Amora had retreated to a small hideout on the outskirts of Lagos, a place abandoned long ago, hidden behind the walls of a forgotten factory. Dust and shadows filled the space, but to them, it was sanctuary. For now. Chike sat on the cracked concrete floor, the leather pouch and wooden chest nearby, and traced the symbols in Ngozi's notebook with his fingertips. Each mark felt alive, a pulse that guided him through the city, through the layers of history, and into the heart of the secrets she had left behind. Obi shuffled uneasily beside him. I can't stop thinking about last night, he said quietly. Emeka, what if he betrays us again? I can't shake the feeling that one wrong step and it's over. Chike's jaw tightened. Then we have to be smarter. Smarter than Chief Ease, smarter than Ukenna, smarter than anyone who thinks they can take this from us. Amora, leaning against the wall, her eyes sharp, interjected. Smarter, yes. But you also need help, real help. You can't do this alone, not anymore. Ngozi prepared the legacy for you, yes, but she knew allies would be crucial. That's why there are others, still alive, waiting. Chike's eyes flicked to her, curiosity burning. Others? Who? Amora's gaze softened. Dike. He was once an ally of Ngozi, a protector of her people along the river. If anyone can help guide you through the hidden paths and defend you against Chief Ease's forces, it's him. But he's not easy to find, and he doesn't trust easily. Obi groaned. Great. Another stranger. That's exactly what we need. Chike shook his head, resolute. We need him. If we're going to survive and protect this legacy, we can't do it alone. Let's find him. The next morning, under a pale, uncertain sun, they made their way toward the river, where Dike was said to live. The streets of Lagos were waking with the usual chaos, vendors shouting prices, carts rolling unevenly, the distant sound of horns and traffic. But for Chike and his companions, the world felt suspended, every shadow a potential threat, every face a possible enemy. After hours of searching, guided by vague directions from Amora, they reached a small cluster of huts near the riverbank. The smell of fish and smoke hung in the air. And there, working with bare hands to mend a fishing net, was Dike. Broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, eyes sharp and wary, he moved with the confidence of a man who had faced hardship and survived. Chike stepped forward, his voice firm. Are you Dike? Dike looked up slowly, eyes narrowing. Who's asking? I am Chike, he said, standing taller despite his young age. Ngozi's grandson. This belongs to my family. He gestured toward the chest. And we need your help. Dike's gaze shifted to the chest, then back to Chike. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The river gurgled nearby, the only sound. Finally, Dike spoke, his voice low but strong. Ngozi's grandchild. I thought she had no one left. I've heard whispers, stories. You survived Chief Ease before. You have courage, boy. But courage alone won't save you now. You need strategy, strength, and people who know this city like the back of their hand. Chike nodded. That's why we came to you. Will you help us? Dike studied them carefully, taking in Emeka and Obi. His eyes lingered on Emeka with suspicion, but he finally nodded. I will help. But first, you must prove to me you are worthy of Ngozi's trust. The challenge Chike gave them was not simple. He led them to an old, abandoned warehouse near the docks, a place where shadows could swallow a person whole. Inside, he had hidden clues similar to those in Ngozi's notebook, puzzles that tested observation, patience, and courage. Chike worked through the clues meticulously, with Obi by his side and Emeka watching silently. Amora offered guidance but refused to interfere directly. Each puzzle revealed fragments of Ngozi's network, names of loyal families, hidden safe houses, and secret messages intended to be decoded only by those she trusted. Hours passed. Sweat dripped down their faces, muscles ached, but Chike pressed on. Finally, at the last puzzle, he found a hidden compartment containing a small wooden box. Inside were letters and maps, detailing safe routes and allies across the city. It was a fragment of Ngozi's legacy, more complete than anything they had discovered before. Chike's eyes gleamed. You have the patience, courage, and mind of a guardian. Ngozi would be proud. I will help you. But understand this, the enemies you face are relentless. Chief Ease will not stop, and now Ukena is coming. Chike nodded, determination firm. Then we prepare. We protect the legacy, no matter the cost. As night fell, Chike guided them along the river, showing secret pathways, hidden docks, and abandoned houses that could serve as temporary safe havens. He told stories of Ngozi, of her courage and foresight, of the battles she had fought to protect her people and her secrets. Chike listened intently, understanding more than ever that Ngozi had built a legacy not just of land and wealth, but of loyalty, protection, and survival. Obi marveled at Chike's knowledge. This guy knows everything, he whispered. He's like a human map of Lagos. Emeka, however, remained silent, his expression unreadable. Chike noticed his unease, but chose to focus on the present. Trust would have to be earned again, step by step. As they settled into a hidden dockside hut, the sounds of Lagos faded into the background. Chike opened the chest once more, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. He traced the edges of the documents and letters, realizing that the coming days would demand more courage, more strategy, and more unity than ever before. He glanced at Obi, Emeka, Amora, and now Chike, his allies in this growing storm. We're ready, he whispered. We survive together, we protect together, or we fail together. There is no other choice. Outside, the river reflected the moonlight, calm but full of secrets. Somewhere in the shadows, Chief Ease and Ukena were plotting, unaware that Chike's circle had grown stronger, wiser, and more prepared. But even as Chike felt a surge of hope, a shadow lingered. Emeka's divided loyalty, the unpredictability of Ukena, and the endless network of hidden dangers. The legacy was safe, for now, but the storm was coming. And Chike, the boy who had once sold oranges on the streets of Lagos, knew that he was no longer just a boy. He was a guardian, a protector, a leader, and the weight of Ngozi's vision rested on his shoulders more heavily than ever. The city had settled into a quiet lull, but the air still carried the heavy scent of tension. Chike, Obi, Emeka, and Amora had retreated to a small hideout on the outskirts of Lagos, a place abandoned long ago, hidden behind the walls of a forgotten factory. Dust and shadows filled the space, but to them, it was sanctuary. For now. Chike sat on the cracked concrete floor, the leather pouch and wooden chest nearby, and traced the symbols in Ngozi's notebook with his fingertips. Each mark felt alive, a pulse that guided him through the city, through the layers of history, and into the heart of the secrets she had left behind. Obi shuffled uneasily beside him. I can't stop thinking about last night, he said quietly. Emeka, what if he betrays us again? I can't shake the feeling that one wrong step and it's over. Chike's jaw tightened. Then we have to be smarter. Smarter than Chief Ease, smarter than Ukena, smarter than anyone who thinks they can take this from us. Amora, leaning against the wall, her eyes sharp, interjected. Smarter, yes. But you also need help, real help. You can't do this alone, not anymore. Ngozi prepared the legacy for you, yes, but she knew allies would be crucial. That's why there are others, still alive, waiting. Chike's eyes flicked to her, curiosity burning. Others? Who? Amora's gaze softened. Dike. He was once an ally of Ngozi, a protector of her people along the river. If anyone can help guide you through the hidden paths and defend you against Chifi's forces, it's him. But he's not easy to find, and he doesn't trust easily. Obi groaned. Great. Another stranger. That's exactly what we need. Chike shook his head, resolute. We need him. If we're going to survive and protect this legacy, we can't do it alone. Let's find him. The next morning, under a pale, uncertain sun, they made their way toward the river, where Dike was said to live. The streets of Lagos were waking with the usual chaos, vendors shouting prices, carts rolling unevenly, the distant sound of horns and traffic. But for Chike and his companions, the world felt suspended, every shadow a potential threat, every face a possible enemy. After hours of searching, guided by vague directions from Amora, they reached a small cluster of huts near the riverbank. The smell of fish and smoke hung in the air. And there, working with bare hands to mend a fishing net, was Dike. Broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, eyes sharp and wary, he moved with the confidence of a man who had faced hardship and survived. Chike stepped forward, his voice firm. Are you Dike? Dike looked up slowly, eyes narrowing. Who's asking? I am Chike, he said, standing taller despite his young age. Ngozi's grandson. This belongs to my family. He gestured toward the chest. And we need your help. Dike's gaze shifted to the chest, then back to Chike. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The river gurgled nearby, the only sound. Finally, Dike spoke, his voice low but strong. Ngozi's grandchild. I thought she had no one left. I've heard whispers, stories. You survived Chief Ease before. You have courage, boy. But courage alone won't save you now. You need strategy, strength, and people who know this city like the back of their hand. Chike nodded. That's why we came to you. Will you help us? Dike studied them carefully, taking in Emeka and Obi. His eyes lingered on Emeka with suspicion, but he finally nodded. I will help. But first, you must prove to me you are worthy of Ngozi's trust. The challenge Dike gave them was not simple. He led them to an old, abandoned warehouse near the docks, a place where shadows could swallow a person whole. Inside, he had hidden clues similar to those in Ngozi's notebook, puzzles that tested observation, patience, and courage. Chike worked through the clues meticulously, with Obi by his side and Emeka watching silently. Amora offered guidance but refused to interfere directly. Each puzzle revealed fragments of Ngozi's network, names of loyal families, hidden safe houses, and secret messages intended to be decoded only by those she trusted. Hours passed. Sweat dripped down their faces, muscles ached, but Chike pressed on. Finally, at the last puzzle, he found a hidden compartment containing a small wooden box. Inside were letters and maps, detailing safe routes and allies across the city. It was a fragment of Ngozi's legacy, more complete than anything they had discovered before. Dike's eyes gleamed. You have the patience, courage, and mind of a guardian. Ngozi would be proud. I will help you. But understand this, the enemies you face are relentless. Chief Ease will not stop, and now Ukena is coming. Chike nodded, determination firm. Then we prepare. We protect the legacy, no matter the cost. As night fell, Dike guided them along the river, showing secret pathways, hidden docks, and abandoned houses that could serve as temporary safe havens. He told stories of Ngozi, of her courage and foresight, of the battles she had fought to protect her people and her secrets. Chike listened intently, understanding more than ever that Ngozi had built a legacy not just of land and wealth, but of loyalty, protection, and survival. Obi marveled at Dike's knowledge. This guy knows everything, he whispered. He's like a human map of Lagos. Emeka, however, remained silent, his expression unreadable. Chike noticed his unease, but chose to focus on the present. Trust would have to be earned again, step by step. As they settled into a hidden dockside hut, the sounds of Lagos faded into the background. Chike opened the chest once more, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. He traced the edges of the documents and letters, realizing that the coming days would demand more courage, more strategy, and more unity than ever before. He glanced at Obi, Emeka, Amora, and now Dike, his allies in this growing storm. "We're ready," he whispered. "We survive together, we protect together, or we fail together. There is no other choice." Outside, the river reflected the moonlight, calm but full of secrets. Somewhere in the shadows, Chief Ease and Ukena were plotting, unaware that Chike's circle had grown stronger, wiser, and more prepared. But even as Chike felt a surge of hope, a shadow lingered: Emeka's divided loyalty, the unpredictability of Ukena, and the endless network of hidden dangers. The legacy was safe, for now, but the storm was coming. And Chike, the boy who had once sold oranges on the streets of Lagos, knew that he was no longer just a boy. He was a guardian, a protector, a leader, and the weight of Ngozi's vision rested on his shoulders more heavily than ever. The Lagos skyline glimmered faintly as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, painting the city in shades of orange and deep purple. From the rooftops of the old market district to the winding alleys near the river, shadows stretched like fingers, ready to engulf anyone unprepared. Chike's group had taken refuge in one of Ngozi's hidden safe houses, a cramped but secure building tucked behind abandoned warehouses, far from the prying eyes of Chief Ease's forces. Dike moved silently along the edges of the room, checking the barricades and peeking through the cracks in the windows. Obi crouched nearby, sharpening a makeshift spear with quiet focus, while Amora paced along the walls, her eyes never leaving the street outside. Chike stood near the chest, the notebook open in front of him, tracing Ngozi's instructions and symbols. Emeka lingered in the corner, expression unreadable, hands twitching occasionally as if impatient or nervous. The tension in the room was palpable. Every creak, every whisper of the wind against the broken windows, seemed amplified, echoing like a warning. And somewhere out there, Ukena was moving. Amora finally broke the silence. "He's in the city. I've heard reports. Young, fast, intelligent, and ruthless. He doesn't just hunt, you'll see. He studies, predicts, manipulates, and then strikes. There is no mercy. Chief Ease trusts him completely, and that makes him dangerous beyond measure." Chike's jaw tightened. "Then we prepare. We can't wait for him to come to us." Night fell completely, and the streets outside the safe house became a maze of shadows and flickering streetlights. Ada and Ifema had joined them, small but determined, clutching maps and letters they had found hidden throughout the city. They had been tasked with reconnaissance, moving through quiet alleys to check for patrols, mark safe routes, and leave signals for Chike's team. Chike, with Dike and Emeka, decided to set up a trap. Using the network of hidden paths Ngozi had left behind, they hoped to anticipate Ukena's moves, funneling him into a location where they could confront him or at least delay him long enough to protect the chest. Hours passed as the city seemed to hold its breath. Every distant shout, every clatter in the alleyways, made their hearts pound faster. Then, as the night deepened, a shadow appeared across the rooftops, a figure moving with unnatural silence and speed. Ukena. He descended near a dark alley, his movements precise, calculated, like a predator testing the waters before striking. Chike's group had anticipated him, but nothing could fully prepare them for the intensity of his presence. Ukena's eyes glimmered with cold intelligence, scanning the streets, noting every corner, every potential escape route. He was not here to fight openly, he was here to dismantle, to manipulate, to outsmart. Dike whispered, "Stay calm. Watch his movements. He's testing you, looking for fear." Chike nodded, heart pounding. He had faced danger before, but Ukena was different. This wasn't just brute force, this was cunning, calculated, and relentless. From the rooftops, Ukena observed Ada and Ephema as they moved cautiously through the alleys, leaving small marks and signals. He smiled faintly, almost amused. Children playing spy games in the city? It was audacious, and that audacity intrigued him. Chike decided to make the first move. Using the knowledge Dyke had shared about hidden alleys and Ngoz's safe routes, he led a small team to a location where they could intercept Ukena. They moved silently, shadows among shadows, hearts pounding, every step measured. Ukena anticipated them. Before they reached the meeting point, he was already there, hidden in the darkness, observing their approach. When Chike and Dyke stepped into the narrow alley, Ukena emerged from the shadows, silent as a ghost, eyes glinting with dangerous intent. "You've grown bold, Chike," Ukena said softly, almost a whisper, yet it carried across the alley like a blade. "I've watched you. Clever boy, smart, but not fast enough." Chike's hands clenched, adrenaline surging. "We won't let you take it. Not the chest. Not Ngoz's legacy." Ukena tilted his head, analyzing him. "Legacy? Everything is a game of survival. You either adapt or you perish. And I don't perish." Without warning, Ukena moved, lightning fast. He darted toward the end of the alley, forcing Chike and Dyke to split to anticipate him. His speed was unnatural, almost inhuman. Every movement precise, calculated. He could strike, retreat, and reappear in seconds. Obi and Emeka, positioned near the entrance of the alley, tried to flank him, but Ukena anticipated their moves, shifting like water, slipping past every attempt to trap him. His presence was more than threat, it was chaos, controlled and deliberate. Meanwhile, Ada and Ephema were following their own path, marking safe routes and checking for danger. But Ukena's scouts had spotted them. They froze as three men emerged from the shadows, circling toward them. Fear surged, but Ada clenched her amulet tightly. "We can't let them take us," Ada whispered. "We have to be brave." Ephema nodded, eyes sharp. "Follow me. There's a hidden passage here." The girls slipped through the narrow tunnel beneath a crumbling building, hearts pounding, lungs burning. Outside, Ukena observed the escape, noting every detail. "Clever," he murmured. But clever alone won't save them. Back in the alley, the confrontation intensified. Chike, Dyke, and Emeka worked together to corner Ukena, using every trick they knew. But he anticipated every move, countering with intelligence and speed. It was a battle not of strength but of wit, strategy, and nerve. Chike realized that brute force would not win here. He needed to outthink Ukena, to predict, to mislead. Using small decoy movements and signals, he drew Ukena toward a hidden trap, a concealed courtyard Ngozi had once used as a secret meeting point. The plan worked, partially. Ukena fell into the trap, but only briefly, enough to give Chike's team a chance to regroup. He laughed, sharp and cold, eyes gleaming. "Not bad, boy. You've grown clever. But clever isn't enough." The alley shook with the intensity of his presence. Chike could feel the danger like a tangible weight pressing on his chest. Every breath was calculated, every heartbeat synchronized with survival instincts he hadn't known he possessed. The night stretched on, tension climbing higher with every step. Chike and his allies had survived the first encounter, but Ukena had shown them a frightening truth. This enemy did not fight like anyone they had known. He was smarter, faster, and more ruthless. As the group retreated back to the safe house, hearts pounding and minds racing, Dyke spoke gravely. "He's not just a threat. He's a storm. And storms don't just break things, they reshape everything they touch." Chike stared at the chest, at the notebook, at the path Ngozi had entrusted to him. The weight of responsibility was heavier than ever, but the resolve in his heart burned brighter. He would protect the legacy, no matter the cost, even if it meant facing a danger unlike any he had ever known. Ada and Ephema returned moments later, sharing their discoveries, their eyes wide with excitement and fear. Chike looked at them, then at his companions, and realized that together, they were stronger. The storm had arrived, but so had the courage to face it. And somewhere in the darkness of the city, Ukena watched, calculating his next move. The game had escalated, and the battle for Ngozi's legacy had only just begun. The city of Lagos had fallen into an uneasy calm. The moon hung low over the rooftops, silver light spilling across the narrow alleys and winding streets. But inside the small hideout where Chike and his allies had regrouped, the tension was palpable. Every creak of the wooden floor, every whisper of wind through the cracked windows, seemed amplified, like the city itself was holding its breath. Chike sat near the chest, tracing symbols in Ngozi's notebook. Each line, each mark, felt like a pulse of memory, a whisper from the past. He had spent nights decoding and mapping the hidden network she had left behind, but now the threat of Ukena and Chief E's forces loomed larger than ever. Dyke paced silently, his broad frame moving with quiet purpose. "We can't just fight what we see," he said, voice low. "We have to understand it first. Ngozi's legacy isn't just land or treasure, it's history, knowledge, and guidance. We need someone who understands the spirit of it, someone who knows the truth beyond the maps and letters." Chike's eyes narrowed. "Do you mean, a guide?" Dyke nodded. "Yes. Someone who can see beyond what's written, someone who can interpret the signs and symbols the rest of us miss. I know of one. Reverend Jonah. He's a man respected across the city, connected to those Ngozi once trusted. He knows the spiritual and historical layers of her work. If anyone can help us understand the full weight of this legacy, it's him." Emeka, leaning against the wall, raised an eyebrow. "A preacher? You're telling me a man of the cloth can help us outsmart Ukena?" Amora's eyes flicked to Emeka. "Not just any man of the cloth. Reverend Jonah has seen the tides of power, survival, and loyalty. He understands the city, the people, and the invisible networks Ngozi left behind. He will help if we can reach him, and he will guide us if we prove we are worthy of the knowledge." Chike nodded slowly, determination hardening in his chest. "Then we find him. Tonight." No hesitation. The journey to Reverend Jonah's residence was perilous. They navigated narrow alleys, moved across rooftops, and slipped past Ukena's scouts with Dyke's guidance. Every corner seemed alive with danger, every shadow a potential threat. Ada and Ifema followed close behind, carrying small notes and maps they had uncovered, their eyes wide but alert. Finally, they arrived at a modest, unassuming house tucked behind a dense row of trees. A soft glow spilled from a window, illuminating the path. Chike knocked gently. The door opened slowly, revealing a tall, dignified man in his 50s, wearing simple robes but radiating authority and wisdom. His eyes, sharp and calculating, met theirs with intensity. "You seek guidance," he said, voice deep and calm. "Ngozi spoke of you. I know why you have come. But before I can help, I must see the truth of your intent. The legacy is not for the careless, nor the fearful." Chike stepped forward. "We are ready. We will do whatever it takes to protect it. We understand the danger, and we accept it." The Reverend studied them for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. Come inside." Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of burning incense, old books, and leather. Shelves lined the walls, filled with ancient manuscripts, maps, and relics. A large wooden table dominated the center of the room, scattered with papers, candles, and artifacts. Reverend Jonah gestured for them to sit. "You have done well to survive this long," he began, eyes locking on Chike. "But survival alone does not mean you understand. Ngozi's legacy is layered, physical, historical, and spiritual. Each layer must be respected, or it can consume you. Ukena is not just a threat to your family, he is a threat to the order Ngozi maintained. And he is clever. He will test every weakness you have, every flaw in your strategy." Dyke leaned forward. "Then teach us. Show us how to think beyond what we see. We need every advantage we can get." Reverend Jonah moved to the shelves, pulling down an ancient, worn book. He opened it carefully, revealing diagrams, maps, and handwritten notes. Ngozi was wise. She knew the world would challenge her. She left markers, signals, and instructions for those who would come after. But you must read them correctly. Misinterpret them, and the consequences are severe. He traced his finger across one of the diagrams. These symbols indicate hidden safe houses, but also alliances. Some families in the city are loyal to her memory. Some are not. You must discern the difference. Trust must be earned. Chike nodded, absorbing every word. And Ukena? The Reverend's expression darkened. He is young, ambitious, and without compassion. He is a storm, and storms destroy indiscriminately. You must outthink him, outmaneuver him, and understand the invisible threads that connect Ngozi's allies. Only then can you hope to survive. For hours, Reverend Jonah guided them through the layers of Ngozi's work. He taught them how to read hidden signs in the city, how to interpret messages that seemed innocuous, and how to anticipate the moves of someone like Ukena. Ada and Ifema listened intently, absorbing every detail. For the first time, the younger generation understood their role was more than just observation, they were active participants in preserving the legacy. As the night deepened, Reverend Jonah led them to a large map of Lagos, marked with small symbols and notes. These are locations Ngozi trusted. Families, businesses, hidden paths. If you are strategic, you can use them to your advantage. But beware, Ukena is clever. He will test every route, every contact, every ally you think you can trust. Chike studied the map carefully, tracing possible escape routes and hidden meeting points. His mind raced with strategy, anticipation, and determination. Every step had to be precise. One mistake, and Ukena could strike with devastating effect. Dyke's voice broke the silence. We also need to strengthen the defenses around the chest. If it falls into Ukena's hands, everything we've worked for will be gone. Amora added, and we must prepare for confrontation. He won't hesitate. He thrives on fear and chaos. We need to remain calm, precise, and united. Meanwhile, outside the safe house, Ukena had already begun his own preparations. He observed the city from a distance, noting patterns, movements, and the network of hidden paths Ngozi had left behind. He had learned that a new force was rising against him: Chike, Dyke, Amora, Ada, Ifema, and now Reverend Jonah's guidance would make them even more formidable. A small smile crossed his lips, sharp and cold. Interesting, he murmured. The game is growing more complex. But complexity is no match for speed and ruthlessness. Soon, they will see what it means to face me. Back inside, Chike felt the weight of the responsibility heavier than ever. He had learned from Ngozi, from Dyke, from Amora, and now Reverend Jonah. The network was growing, the strategies becoming more complex, and the stakes higher than ever. But for the first time, he felt a surge of confidence. They had knowledge, preparation, and allies. And though Ukena was dangerous beyond measure, Chike knew that courage, strategy, and the unity of his friends and family could turn the tide. As dawn approached, Reverend Jonah stood by the window, looking out at the city. The storm is coming, he said quietly. But storms also reveal the strength of those who endure them. Remember, Chike, the legacy is more than the chest. It is wisdom, courage, and the ability to protect what is most precious. Do not forget that. Chike nodded, feeling the weight of every word settle into his bones. He had survived betrayal, danger, and countless challenges. Now, with Reverend Jonah's guidance, he understood the full magnitude of his role, not just as a boy protecting a chest, but as a guardian of history, spirit, and family. Outside, the first hints of sunlight broke over Lagos, but Ukena was already moving, unseen, calculating, preparing for the next phase of the battle. And Chike knew that the fight for Ngozi's legacy had only just entered its most dangerous stage. The city of Lagos was alive with a tense, restless energy. Shadows stretched long across the alleyways, rooftops, and quiet streets as if the city itself sensed the storm about to descend. Chike and his allies had spent the day preparing, every hidden path mapped, every safe house checked, and every strategy laid out with precision under Reverend Jonah's guidance. Chike stood near the chest, his fingers brushing over the worn leather, feeling the weight of Ngozi's legacy pressing down on him. The legacy was no longer just paper, maps, or amulets, it was courage, responsibility, and survival. And tonight, every ounce of that legacy would be tested. Dyke, broad-shouldered and calm, moved through the room, checking barricades and reinforcing weak points. "His coming," Dyke said quietly, eyes scanning the horizon through the broken windows. "Ukenna won't wait. He thrives on chaos, but we can control the battlefield if we act carefully." Obi sharpened his spear again, the rhythmic sound echoing off the walls. "Chaos or not, we'll make him regret every step he takes. Tonight, he won't see us coming. He won't know what hit him." Amora paced silently, her sharp eyes never leaving the street outside. "We have to anticipate everything. His speed, his cunning, we cannot afford a single mistake. The children must remain hidden until the final move." Ada and Ephema, sitting together in a shadowed corner, clutched Ngozi's letters and amulets, hearts pounding but spirits unwavering. They had grown bolder, wiser, understanding that their intuition and courage were as critical as any weapon or trap Chike could set. Emeka, still a mixture of tension and calculation, stepped forward. "We have the advantage of preparation. But remember, he's seen patterns, learned movements, and will adapt quickly. We need to be unpredictable. We need to strike when he least expects it." The first sign of Ukenna's approach was subtle. A distant shuffle of feet across rooftops, a whisper of movement through narrow alleys. Then, a shadow flickered against the wall, a figure moving with unnatural precision. Chike motioned for silence. "Positions," he whispered, voice barely audible but commanding. Dyke, Obi, and Emeka took strategic points, each covering key entryways, while Amora and the girls prepared signals and backups. Chike himself moved to the chest, the notebook open, tracing hidden symbols that marked both traps and escape routes. Ukenna emerged from the shadows like a ghost, eyes cold and calculating. His gaze swept the area, noting every corner, every potential threat. He smiled faintly, sharp and dangerous. "So, this is the resistance," he murmured. "A boy, some adults, and a couple of clever children. Impressive. But impressive is not enough." The first clash was sudden. Ukenna struck with lightning speed, darting toward the main entrance. Dyke intercepted, swinging a reinforced pipe with precision, but Ukenna was faster, sidestepping with ease. Obi flung a spear toward him, but he vanished into the shadows, reappearing several feet away, calculating every move. Chike realized quickly, brute force alone would not work. He needed strategy, distraction, and misdirection. He signaled to Emeka, who reluctantly nodded, understanding the plan. Ada and Ephema, hidden in the shadows, used the signals they had left earlier to create diversions. Small fires, subtle noises, and marks on walls drew Ukenna's attention, forcing him to split focus and adapt. Chike seized the moment. He moved silently along a hidden path, guided by Ngozi's instructions and Reverend Jonah's teachings. With Dyke and Emeka coordinating, they began to corner Ukenna, drawing him toward the trap, a courtyard carefully chosen for its strategic advantage. Ukenna entered the courtyard, scanning for threats. The walls were high, broken only by small hidden pathways Chike had anticipated. The moment he realized he had been drawn into the trap, Chike and his team struck simultaneously. Dyke lunged from one side, Obi and Amora from another, while Chike, moving like a shadow himself, positioned to block any escape. Ukenna's movements were precise, almost inhuman, but even he could not anticipate the full coordination of Chike's team. A fight erupted, fast, chaotic, and tense. Metal clashed, footsteps echoed, and every movement was a test of reflexes, strategy, and courage. Ukenna struck with speed and power, but Chike and Dyke anticipated him, blocking and countering, while Obi used his spear to disrupt the rhythm. Emeka, despite past betrayals, acted with precision, following Chike's signals and protecting the flanks. Every second felt stretched, every decision critical. Ada and Ifema watched from above, signaling when openings appeared, their young eyes sharp and attentive. Then, in a moment of tense silence, Ukena faltered. Chike had anticipated his next move, and a coordinated strike from Dyke and Obi forced him to the ground. He rose instantly, chest heaving, eyes burning with frustration and rage. "You think this ends with one fight?" Ukena spat, his voice low and dangerous. "You cannot stop what is coming. Chief Ease will rise again, and you will fall." Chike's voice was calm, resolute. "We're not afraid of you. This legacy isn't just paper, maps, or amulets. It's courage, family, and loyalty. You can't break that." For a long moment, the two faced each other, a tense silence filled only by the city's distant hum. Then, Ukena smirked faintly, acknowledging defeat for now. "This isn't over," he said. "But, you've grown stronger. I see that. We will meet again." He vanished into the shadows, moving with the same precision and cunning that had made him a constant threat. The aftermath was quiet but intense. Chike, Dyke, Obi, Amora, Ada, and Ifema regrouped, hearts pounding, adrenaline slowly subsiding. The chest remained secure, the network of hidden paths intact, and the legacy preserved, for now. Reverend Jonah entered, his calm presence filling the room. "You have survived the storm," he said, voice steady. "But storms always return. Ukena is relentless. Chief Ease will not stop. Remember, the legacy is not just protection, it is understanding, unity, and courage. You have shown all three tonight." Chike nodded, exhaustion and relief mingling. "We've learned much. We've survived much. But we're ready for what comes next. We will protect this legacy, no matter the cost." Ada and Ifema, holding Ngozi's letters and amulets close, exchanged a glance of quiet determination. They had faced danger, contributed, and grown braver than they had ever imagined. Outside, the city of Lagos stretched endlessly, unaware of the battle that had taken place in its shadows. But Chike knew, as did his allies, that the storm was far from over. Ukena would return, Chief Ease would escalate, and the challenges would grow. Yet, in that moment, Chike felt a surge of hope. They had survived. They had fought. And together, they were stronger than any threat the city could send.